Trump was right. That's the focus of tonight's angle. At the end of a week like this, with so many of the world's events having turned against us, we once again arrive at the conclusion that, yes, Trump was right. Now, remember, from the very first months of his presidency, he challenged the stale old status quo. You know, that status quo where America carried the lion's share of the security burden for Europe?
NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today.
Now, he made it clear that the days were over when the United Nations and other foreign countries could just run roughshod over America's interests.
We are only going to give foreign aid to those who respect us and, frankly, are our friends. And we expect other countries to pay their fair share for the cost of their defense. The United States is committed to making the United Nations more effective and accountable.
His common sense message seemed kind of subdued there, didn't he? But it infuriated our sanctimonious scribblers to no end. Trump's takedown of their sacred cow, the rules-based international order, that thing wasn't just wrong, the order. What he said about it was dangerous.
Donald Trump is needlessly, recklessly, and mindlessly doing right now to destroy the underpinnings of the American-led international order.
Yeah. They chose to walk away from many of the institutions that have really formed or informed American foreign policy now for nearly 3/4 of a century.
The greatest threat to the liberal international order right now is surely the Trump administration.
No, Fareed, the greatest threat to the order was and is the globalist status quo. Even Henry Kissinger understood this. Yeah, the man most responsible for America's opening to China in the 1970s. He saw the growing threat of Beijing and how it becomes so dangerous under President Xi, and advised Trump in a series of meetings on ways to box out China by establishing closer ties to Russia. The potential strategy would use closer relationships with Russia, along with other countries in the region, to box in China's growing power and influence. Well, Trump agreed with Kissinger's points, and before the phony Mueller investigation began, he would have followed a strategy designed to draw Moscow closer to prevent China from forging a new alliance with them. During the Cold War, U.S. foreign policy was aimed at keeping Russia and China apart. After 2 years of Biden, they've never been closer. After Xi wrapped up his visit in Moscow this week, Putin and he didn't just toast a budding alliance. They said their partnership will reshape the future. Well, if we continue on the Biden path, that is exactly what's going to happen. America will grow weaker and less independent with each passing year as China grows more powerful. Now, Germany and much of Europe already seems quite comfortable with Russia or China in the driver's seat. Another thing Trump called.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
And now China is on the move everywhere, including in our own hemisphere. Earlier this month, Honduran President Xiomara Castro announced that his country will establish diplomatic ties with China, effectively ending their relationship with Taiwan. With Trump gone, China is gaining influence and power not just to the south, though, but to the north as well, in Canada, which is one of our closest allies and trading partners, as you know. The newspaper Globe and Mail reported last month that China preferred to see Trudeau's Liberals reelected in the 2021 election and worked to defeat conservative politicians considered unfriendly to Beijing. China's been known, of course, to prefer a certain type of candidate in Western countries, the weak Biden type. In fact, in 2020, U.S. intel sources warned that China was deeply opposed to Trump's reelection. Gee, I wonder why. And as America has become economically weaker, Trudeau has become less willing to take a tough stand against China on almost any issue, including that issue of election interference. But we didn't expect Biden in Canada today to announce a new immigration impact. He did not raise any of these issues with China and certainly didn't want to offend pretty boy Justin. Biden's busy overseeing our military as it gets bullied out of the South China Sea. China's defense ministry said today that China drove away the U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Milius, after it entered territorial waters of China's. Now, this is exceedingly dangerous. On top of all the other, well, just a small matter of a potential nuclear war if things go sideways in Ukraine. And then Biden's presided over more American losses in the Middle East. An American contractor was killed and 5 American troops injured when an Iranian drone struck an American base in Syria. Yeah, you probably forgot we actually have troops there.
Why are those 900 troops still on the ground in Syria? I can tell you for certain they are not providing any benefit to the United States. And the claim that the general's making here that they are there for the enduring defeat of ISIS, look, that is nonsense.
Now, in retaliation, supposedly at Biden's direction, we launched counterstrikes on sites in eastern Syria. Well, after Iranian-backed forces ignited this latest exchange, the Pentagon went out of its way today to reassure the global community that it didn't seek any conflict with Iran, but that it seeks only stability in the region. Well, it's a little late for that. Did Americans, though, vote for any of these escalations? And are we getting anything out of the rules-based international order that we were told is so vital to American interests? Well, of course not. And this is something else Trump called out.
We're spending tremendous amounts of money for decades on policing the world, and that shouldn't be our priority. We want to police ourselves, and we want to rebuild our country. We are ending the era of endless wars. It is not the duty of U.S. troops to solve ancient conflicts in faraway lands that many people have never even heard of.
Well, of course, Biden's Pentagon does believe that America has a world police role. This is why, in part, we're fighting that proxy war in Ukraine and wasting energy condemning, Uganda this week for, I guess it's anti-sodomy laws? In the end, this is why realism and America First nationalism must come to define the Republican Party going forward. The idea that somehow the U.S. is going to be safer and more stable if it abides by these so-called global norms, this has always been Fantasyland stuff. Trump knew this instinctively. And the angle, frankly, is thrilled that this idea of a so-called rules-based international order is collapsing before our eyes. That's in America's best interest. The Republican Party, though, will only succeed if it embraces this vision. We know Trump will, but who else? And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.